Alright, so today, I know it's been a while since I've done a video, but I want to talk to you a little bit about tool holders, and I'm going to make one based off this little guy right here. Actually, I'm going to make a couple. This one is actually a threading tool holder, so it holds carbide insert just for 60-degree V-threading. Basically holds it right into the side just like so. And I want to recreate this. I've borrowed this, so I want to make one. One of the issues I have with it is this being my tool holder, it doesn't fit. So I'm going to have to make a few modifications as I go along. Now the reason I bring it up is I've had this thing for a long time. I've modified it. It's not what it's supposed to be. It has its own little issues. For one, whenever you're cutting up next to a product, if this tool holder is straight, well, then it doesn't do a very good job can't shoulder with it very well without tipping it in, so you can get a little bit of clearance on the side. I don't like turning the tool holder, especially if I'm going from a turning process to a threading process. I don't want to have to move the tool holder from off back to center. So I want something a little better. So this one will go along the wayside as far as the tool holder is concerned. And I've got these inserts that are normally for boring bars. So it's a larger boring insert for a larger boring bar. But I want to turn this into a turning tool. So I want to be able to mount it something of that nature. I believe it's an 80-degree diamond. So it'll give me 5 degrees of clearance off both sides if I set it up like so. So what I'm thinking of doing, I've got some 1018 steel here. I know it's probably not the best stuff in the world to use for this, but remember, it's a small lathe. So I want to recreate this bar that I've borrowed, because I bought a bunch of these inserts and I do a lot of threading, so this would be very handy for me. So I'm going to keep that, and what I want to do is I want to make 2 tool holders, or 2 insert holders, I guess, toolbars. So I'm going to have to cut these down to length, of course. Then I'm going to have to mill them down to size. Don't have to take a whole lot off except for the part that's going to go inside my tool holder for my quick change. But I'm going to make them the same size at first. So this shank will be built to fit my tool holder. Then the head of this thing, I'm just going to make a square out of it at first, because there's plenty of material here to set one of these up. And of course, this is already made for that. So it's not going to be a great bit of work. But what I'll do first is I'll go ahead and get these to size. Then we'll be back and I'll show you how to set up what I'm going to do here for the insert. But first, cut them down, get them ready. I found this giant allotment of drill bits. As you can see, a lot of them are screw machine drills, which is really nice for my little machine. And I found one carbide reamer in this little allotment. Found it at a little shop just for selling odds and ends, and they had this cigar box full of these drill bits, and I was able to pick it up for about $7. So I was real happy about that. The reason I bring it up is that I've got a 632 tap that I'm going to use to tap this hole whenever I get there for our piece. Now this is the one I'm going to use for a threading insert. Now, I haven't cut this side down yet. I've just done this one side, did a little corner round over here, got a little away from me, but that's okay. It'll still be just fine. So I've got to place that inset in this side, somewhere around in there. I've got it all in a print at the moment, so I can recreate it as I need. I don't have this. It's been a while since I've been in the shop, so I had to send back my other piece and my sample. But anyway, I want to mill this side down just a little bit. I'm not going to go to the full 1/2 inch thickness like I did for fitting in the jaw here. So that's at a 1/2 inch. And I'm just going to take this side down about 1/8, maybe just for a little bit of clearance. Nothing real spectacular. But whenever I get done with that, then the next thing I want to do is start the inset pocket for my insert. So what I'll have to find out on this is what the inscribed circle is that this would fit into if it was round. So the inscribed circle on inserts will take you from the flat points of this triangle. So what we can do is pocket that with an end mill straight down to the thickness of the insert, which I think is about 1/8 of an inch. Then go ahead and drill and tap that hole while we're there. Then we can come back and mill our straight lines for our pocket, and it'll also give us a little bit of a guide to make sure that we're catching the sides like we need to. Then we can test fit the insert before I go ahead and chamfer this end and chamfer this end, because both the ends were chamfered, one so you can see what's going on, and the other one I guess for clearance. It doesn't really need it per se, but it would be nice to chamfer this end to meet this corner, just to keep the shape of the insert. So that's what I'll do next. Just put it in the mill and mill this side down. Then when I get to the pocketing portion, we'll come back and start doing that and figuring out how we're going to do it. So what I've done here is I've datumed this corner right here. So I edge found this side, went to 0 on the edge found this side, went to 0 on this edge. Now that direction in X will be 187.5, half the diameter of 3/8, because I found 3/8 is the inscribed circle size of the triangular insert that I'm using. So bore a hole 3/8, in essence it should touch on all the sides of the circle, so 3 sides of the triangle. So from the bottom up I had to move the hole. I wanted an 1/8 inch left up at the top, so I had to move 437 thousandths 5/10 up, because this is the bottom for my hole center, and for hole center on X will be 187.5. So I'll bore an 1/8 inch deep. So the insert thickness is 127. So I'm going to bore my hole to 1/8 inch deep. Leave myself a little bit of room on the outside, just in case I need to clean up something. So bore the hole, tap the hole, bore, drill, tap, right in a row right here, without moving. That way everything stays in place. Then I'll use a smaller end mill to come back and cut the relief for the back of the triangle, and the side angle I'll have to reposition the vise to set the vise this way to get the other angle of my triangle, which will be 60 degrees or 30 degrees. Depends on how you look at it. Alright, so there's the little 3/8 hole that I made. You can see it's just starting to push out right there. So it's real close to the edge. All I've done is bring the table straight down. We talked about screw machine drills a while ago. Now the reason I have to have them usually is because there's not much distance there between my quill setup. Well, it's got a rigid quill, so actually the entire length of my travel is that. So it has a hard time finding, I have a hard time finding drill bits that are short enough to go in some of these distances. So I was really fortunate to run across those screw machine drills. And every once in a while I have to go through there and pick a few that I need for taps and such and put them to use on this machine. So I'm going to drill this hole, then I'm going to put a tap to it, and by the time I get back, I hope I have something to show for it. Okay, well, I've got the insert basically laying on top and screwed down a little snug. I got it drilled and tapped. So now I want to give myself a little bit of a layout line to kind of keep track of where I'm going, where I'm at, and see if this inscribed circle thing actually worked like I thought it was going to. So we'll give it a shot. I'm just going to mark it with a razor blade because the scribe may not get as close as I want it to. And I feel it going down into the hole, so we should be really, really close. Okay, so now you can kind of see it, but the layout line right there for this angle, and there's another little line you can kind of tell in the camera right there, and both of them meet the inscribed circle. So my next plan of action here is to put in a mill and mill this straight line this way. That way I've got that out of the way, and I'll probably pocket a little bit this direction to remove some material. Then I'll set the vise up at an angle and follow this line to depth. Then come back and do my chamfer this way and do my chamfer this way. So let me get this set up and milled, or at least set up and show you what I need to do on that. Okay, so the part I'm getting ready to cut is this little slot right here. Since everything is straight in the vise right now, I'm going to go ahead and cut this straight slot. So I'm going to plunge mill at this end, at this corner, down the 125 thousandths. I've got to go 525 thousandths from this end. So I've already been 187.5 to the center of the hole. I've got a 3/16 mill in there at the moment, so I've gone an extra 93 thousandths, so it should be around 244, 245 to this hole there at this end. That way 525 will be at the end of my cutter. So I'll mill down the 1/8 inch or 125, then I'll come back out, go down 50 thousandths and come straight out in my last pass, and we should have that slot made. And there's what it looks like so far. So get ready and do that. Alright, here we are at the milling machine, and I just milled the pocket the other side of the wall for that pocket. As you can tell, right around in there, I had a little bit of an issue. It's nothing that's going to hurt anything later on. But the way I had to set this up was I used a base or swivel base for the vise to turn it to the degree that I wanted it to go, which was about 60 degrees. Well, my first 60-degree cut, it was a little off. So reevaluated and looked at it again, and it looked like it was going to set more at about 62 degrees. Probably because my swivel base graduations are off on this cheap vise. So keep that in mind. If you've got a cheap vise, you're probably going to run into the same issue. Not quite what I wanted it to be. Probably should have used an angle block. Didn't have one available at the time, so I got what I got. Now, for the other angles here, for my chamfer and for this side angle, I changed it to 30 degrees or 32 degrees and made my cuts there. And that gave me my chamfers that I wanted. So there it is when it's all said and done. You see the cutting point. You can actually see it as you thread, which is nice. And it's going to fit into my tool holder for the quick change just fine. Now, one thing I noticed when I put this together, you see the cutting points way over here, and there's the clamping bolts here, so the center line's going to be off a little bit. Is it going to make a difference? Probably not. I don't really care for it that much, but I got what I got out of this deal, so more than likely what I'll do on this one for my cutting insert, whenever I do it, I'm going to redesign this just a little bit, and instead of having this flush on one side like I did for this one, like the tool manufacturer made it, like such, I'm probably going to inset it a little ways and bring this tip back over, so the center line of the bolts for the new one will be closer to the offset of the tip. For heavy turning, it might make a difference, that whole leverage thing. So the new block that I'm going to use will be more in line with what my thought process will be, should have been for this one. Then after all these are said and done, then I'll go ahead and test them, and you can see how they work. Now the screw for this side actually protrudes a little bit. The angles are right and everything, but it just doesn't sit down in there like I want it to. For this type insert, it's going to be no big deal. It's going to be up out of the way, but I kind of wanted this one to lay flush so I could go all the way to the edge of a part feature without running into the screw. So I'll probably recut this screw or find a different one or grind one or something a little different. I may even just take a little bit of material off and just set it down in there a little further, see if I can flush it up some. But that'll be for later. First I'm going to start on this after I get my vise put back in without the base on it and get everything centered and flush like it's supposed to be. So there's that in a nutshell, and whenever I start getting in on this angle, I'm going to show you a little bit more about how to put it in.